This is the Thompson Cast. I am Mel Thompson. A major factor when looking at political risk is how a nation regulates and manages its energy supply. Shortages that cause disruptions even for a short period of time can have an adverse impact on transportation, storage, and financial markets. Sri Lankans will be without electricity for at least 2 hours a day until Saturday due to problems with the country's power stations. These are not private firms imposing this so-called rolling blackout. This is being done by the Ministry of Power and Energy. And the cuts are being imposed to deal with a 400 megawatt power shortage. Some of the obvious issues is how to deal with financial markets that are global and done electronically. Do you warn people that are at some point during the day going to make a transaction that it cannot be completed and must be completed at a different time? Actually, this probably would be the best way and the only way to deal with a situation like this. However, this simply should not be occurring in a nation with a developed economy such as Sri Lanka. The government-imposed shortages mean that there is a lack of ability to supply residents and businesses with energy due to government policies that make it necessary for them to have shortages. In other words, what is the genesis of this issue and how to work around it in the future? Also, how to resolve it, how to make it a manageable political risk. The answer is that since this occurred previously in 1996, 2001, and 2002, there is a situation in Sri Lanka that means there is simply inaction as to the energy policy directly correlated to the Chinese manufactured and designed coal-fired plant that is the main source of energy in the country. This plant has failed before. Worst of all, it is the only plant. Previous droughts were in the same years as I just mentioned, and also in those years you had blackouts because the plant failed. Once again, those years were 1996, 2001, 2002. It is now 2012. There's a track record of this happening, and there's been nothing done to replace this plant. That is clearly the genesis of the problem. The major areas to watch as a direct foreign investor and business as it relates to Sri Lankan political risk at this time is in the agricultural sector, particularly in tea, rubber, coffee, and sugar, all of which rely on energy from start to finish. Other vulnerable areas are in manufacturing, specifically in food processing and textiles. The political risk is the government's inaction, knowing that a drought was going to happen at some point, and that the key to preventing a natural disaster, such as a drought, from affecting the power supplies were new, reliable generating systems and a non-reliance on this one Chinese-designed coal-fired power plant. The government has had 10 years and failed to do anything regarding this issue. This is a glaring political risk. It could have been identified by a direct foreign investor or a political risk analyst by looking at the track record in 1996. What did they do? Was there anything done in 1996 later in the year, 97 and subsequent years? 2001 it happened again. Was it because they were in a process of resolving the issues that occurred in 1996, or was it because they just didn't do anything? The next year, 2002, the same problem occurred. 10 years go by, the problem doesn't occur in the same fashion where it's rolling blackouts, everything is fine, nothing is done. Just because things are fine for a decade doesn't mean that the risk should never have been addressed at some point within the past 10 years. Once again, inaction by the government related to energy policy directed specifically at one power plant is a huge political risk in Sri Lanka, and is also a very, very bright red flag for direct foreign investors and businesses looking to do business, particularly in the agricultural industries, with Sri Lankan businesses and the government as well. This was the Thompson Cast. I am Mel Thompson.